Good evening, Papua New Guinea, and welcome to this edition of Catch Play, your sports development program. I'm your host, Godwin Eki, and as always, joining me tonight on the program is my co-host, Mike Omemai. It's good to have you on the show tonight again.
Thank you, Godwin.
Well, without any further ado, let's see what we have coming up for you on the show tonight.
Coming up on the show tonight, we take a look at 16-year-old John Varage's sports development career, soccer NSL Ball Boys, discussion of sports facilities and PNG's assistance to the 2019 Pacific Games in Tonga, Ryan's preparations for Rio Olympics.
And there you have it. That was your lineup for tonight's program. Now, we caught up with 16-year-old John Varage, who's very multi-talented, and Mike caught up with him. So without any further ado, let's see what we have on this story.
16-year-old lad John Varage, who hails from Vairavanua village in the Central Province, is a star in the making and only requires an expert to notice and nurture the talent within. From his primary education at Koroboro International School, the Aroma Coast lad was a Sportsman of the Year in 2011 and 2012. He participated in rugby union, rugby league and athletics, specializing in the sprint events to cross-country, and has won 11 times in a row. Last year breaking the cross-country and the 200-meter inter-school record. The Aroma Coast lad should be the next Rakavele from Hula Central Province, who represented PNG in the marathon in the South Pacific Games. Father Wari Varage is a prominent rugby league administrator and deputy chairman of Port Moresby Rugby League, is proud of his son's achievement.
Right. In fact, John is third in the family, and his interest in athletics came through when I recognized him through when he was with Salvation Army. That's when he was running for cross-country, 100 meters, 200 meters, 400 meters. And then from there, he was building himself up, and I did transfer him from Salvation Army to Koroboro. And that is when he was being established, where he was given a couple of certificates in Sports Boy of the Year. And then from there, he was being transferred to Port Moresby International School under the helm of Andrew Briggs. And Andrew Briggs was really pestering me and telling me that your son has got lots of talents in athletics, rugby union. So I enforced him, and I was forcing John not to rest it. So as a result, I think he's coming up. He's coming up. Oh yes, I did approach John to play a couple of games at the school level, like through union, rugby league union, and I also forced him to take part in Aroma tournament, which was under 20s, and he even asked me that, Dad, I'm only 16 years and I'm going to participate in the tournament, and I said, yes, go ahead and try yourself out. With seeing his talents in him, I forced him to take part, and as a result, he got the player of the tournament in under 20s at the Aroma Coast tournament.
John is confident to continue on winning in the cross-country marathon. This is history-making for the youngster, who is predicted as one of PNG's new find in long distance at this tender age. He recently played in the Vairavanua Rugby League tournament and was named the player of the tournament and was presented 300 kina by Abau MP Sepuka Temo. His talent is yet to be discovered by Athletics PNG and PNG Olympic Committee and even the Port Moresby Athletics Association.
Yes, and that was John Varage there. Now, Ma, you caught up with him, so tell our viewers a little bit about him.
Well, young John is a very multi-talented athlete who has, talent in rugby league, rugby union, athletics. He's won 11 times in a row in his school, and he holds the record for the inter-school carnival in the cross-country. And look, this kid has big dreams to represent the country, and he once said that he wanted to be professional in playing rugby league and also athletics. And as you have seen, he's like marketing himself to be in the PNG athletics team as well, and in rugby league.
You also caught up with his dad.
His dad is the chairman for the PNG Rugby Football League, and he is one of the person who's been pushing his son to take up athletics because he can run any event.
Yep.
So this kid is a bright kid, and he's his brother used to play for a club that Adrian Lamb took him down to Australia, and he's trying to beat the big brother's sport, beat him and become better than him.
So his dad is the encouragement behind him moving forward for his future for sports.
Exactly. His dad's the mentor, and everything, following him, training. He also put him to take part in the Pukatemo Cup.
Yep.
And he was the talent that stood out there in that rugby league competition.
So what is he doing now? Is he back at school? Is he on training? What is he doing?
He's back at school. He's a grade 10 student at the Port Moresby International School now. But the dad's looking at sending him to attend Naji College in Brisbane, Australia.
Yep.
That's where he can develop his rugby league career because it's a sports school. Yeah.
Well, good on him. We'll go for a quick break, and after the break, we catch up with the Ball Boys, who are hoping to become PNG's professional soccer players. Welcome back. You're watching Catch Play. Now, 7 to 13-year-olds, ball boys, who are hoping to become professional soccer players in Papua New Guinea. Now, Mike caught up with them, so let's have a look at the story.
Sports develop kids in different ways, whether it be on the field, court, tracks, pool, indoor and outdoor, you name it. This lot of kids I caught up with are the ball boys of the Telecom National Soccer League competition. Their school holidays was spent helping the PNG Football Association collecting soccer balls, making sure the players have the ball to play on the field. Janet Tui Vega is the person behind assisting and developing these kids ages 6 to 13. The inception of getting kids on board to assist has Ball Boys started in the year 2006, and since then it has continued until now. These kids come from all different schools and backgrounds to be part of the National Soccer League competition every weekend. It's of their interest that they themselves showed to be a ball boy or a ball girl.
These kids come from different schools. They were brought in by the referees, some of them by themselves, knowing very well that NSL takes place, and they come forward and ask if they could be part of the ball boys, and I take them on board and train them, and they become part of the program. So far I have about 24 children, and they come in, sometimes they all come together and we have to divide ourselves into 2 games if we have 2 games for a day. If we have 1 game, we go half time each so that I can involve a whole lot of them.
A lot of these kids have learned a lot being ball boys and learning different skills and techniques of how to be a best soccer player, watching the game itself and being a big part of it. Most of these young kids want to be soccer players when they grow up. They also mentioned what their favorite positions in soccer, positions like sweeper and goalkeeper. Very energetic kids who run from point A to B, collecting balls to make it possible for players to play. All these kids have dreams and goals, and that is to represent PNG and maybe play in Australia.
Yes, and there you have it. That was the passionate 7 to 13-year-old boys who are wanting to come or represent Papua New Guinea in the future. Now, Mike, tell us about this group.
These kids were on school holidays, and they took up this interest with the PNG Football Association.
Yep.
So when the Telecom National Soccer League started, they made it their business to be ball boys during that competition day, and it kind of really inspired them that they love to play soccer as well, and they love to watch their very own role models in the positions that they play.
Yep.
And when they get home, they try to practice what they've seen and maybe become the next professional soccer players in the future for them.
So are these kids all from the settlement just around Port Moresby?
These kids are from the community schools around Port Moresby, where the PNG Football Association goes out and run a program called Just Play.
Okay.
And they've been asked that if you're interested in coming to to be part of the National Soccer League. Please do come along. So they made it their business. There is no contract or anything signed by their parents. It's just their interest that they turn up on the field and say, I am here to help out the players, rescuing the ball or helping them to make the players easy to play.
Well, there you have it. Hopefully these kids will get to represent Papua New Guinea one day. Now, should Papua New Guinea hire sports facilities to other sporting codes? Now, that's coming up after the break, and we talk about Papua New Guinea's assistance to Tonga for the next Pacific Games. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching Catch Play. Now, speaking about Pacific Games, Papua New Guinea sports facilities that were made for 2015 Pacific Games are currently on higher mai. That's what we've heard from the founder for Stones Taekwondo. That's what he mentioned, saying that sports facilities during the Pacific Games are now hired for other positions. Taekwondo, sorry, I have to do it again, other sporting codes. Welcome back to Catch Play. Now, speaking about Pacific Games, sports facilities that were made for the Pacific Games are now being hired by PNG Olympics Committee or Sports Foundation as well to other sporting associations. And we caught up last week with Taekwondo's Stones founder, Jamuka Stones, Master Stones, and he said that he took some of his athletes to train for the upcoming PNG Games, and they were told to pay some sum of money.
Look, after the 2015 Pacific Games, these facilities are for our very own sporting codes in the country, and the fees that they're charging is, it's sky high. We can't let our very own sports people to come on board and take these, pay this kind of amount because they're struggling, and the sponsorship is yet to come. And if you really want to promote sports in the country, mate, this is for our sportsmen and women. 2015 Pacific Games, our very own athletes made it their business to show Papua New Guinea that we can do it.
Capable of, yep.
And after the games, here we are, we're sitting and talking about facilities. Now you go around in Port Moresby, what do you see? The very sport that made the name for our country are training in places where it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, in saying that, we've been talking about sports facilities, and the government saying, or the athletes are saying, we don't have sports facilities to train on, which the government has provided, and now the government is standing back and saying, well, we have to pay if you want to use or train at the facilities, which I think it's going to be really difficult for some sporting codes that are not at that level to come out and pay for sports facility or just to hire the facilities for their upcoming tournaments.
It's already been difficult for these teams and players. As you can see, they're not using the facilities now. It's only, even though when it's competition for the competitions like the NSL, they pay a lot of money to use the Bisini soccer grounds and maybe other sporting teams as well. But we don't know what kind of cost they're charging at the moment. But a lot of sports are struggling to find training venues, and look, we need to support our sportsmen and women.
I mean, speaking about sports development, we've got so many sporting codes that are now coming up and saying yes, they want to involve themselves into sports. So look at all the kids that are showing interest, even adults showing interest in sports. With the recent success of the Pacific Games, this is something that the government should really appreciate and then say yes to our athletes and start using facilities.
Maybe it's because sometimes I spoke to David Au, who's the venues manager last year. What he said was the venues is taken over by the PNG Sports Foundation. If the teams want to use it, they have to negotiate the price, and half of that price, like if you're charging the gate fee, half of, like if it's 5 kina gate fee, maybe 2 kina goes to to the PNG Sports Foundation, and
Yep.
3 kina goes to the sport that is hosting the event there. That's what they said. If you have a negotiation, that's how much
they've
you're going
really
to pay.
pressured the sporting associations, especially in NCD province and Central province as well, because we've got sporting codes that really, want to practice and do some training sessions at the facilities that we provided for the Pacific Games, and I think they should be allowed to. These are our athletes. Because they're charging our athletes this amount, or different associations, like I said earlier, Taekwondo founder for Stones, he's been using his backyard to train his athletes, and they're all preparing for the upcoming PNG Games this year.
Yeah, it's difficult for him, and the venues, they, empty, they've been promised that they were going to use the venues for their training and competition, but when it comes to the 2016, now we can see the athletes are still using that venues. Before the Pacific Games was on, now they're still back to using that same venues that they were using before.
Now, also on the Pacific Games, during the 2015 closing ceremony of the Pacific Games, it was announced that Tonga was going to host the 2019 Pacific Games, and Tonga has asked Papua New Guinea government. Now, recently we had the Tonga president here in Papua New Guinea, and they had negotiations with Minister for Sports as well as our Prime Minister Peter O'Neill, and they had discussions as to whether Papua New Guinea should help Tonga, which obviously, Tonga is a small Pacific island, and yes, we will help Papua New Guinea, we'll help Tonga, give them some assistance in making the Pacific Games in Tonga successful. Also in saying that Australia and New Zealand are also going to be helping Tonga in the Pacific Games.
Well, you see, as you said already, Tonga is a small island nation. It does not have a lot of sporting facilities, sporting venues. So maybe the limitations of sports for the Pacific Games athletes to take part in that competition would be a bit lesser than that. So PNG, has a Pacific nation, the biggest island in the Pacific. They would love to help their own Pacific, the neighbors.
Now, also Minister for Sports, Justin Chichenko, he said that Tonga is more than welcome to have the Pacific Games hosted here in Papua New Guinea, and but that all depends on what Tonga comes up with at the end.
It would be good to see another Pacific Games here in
Papua New Guinea again.
In PNG again.
So hopefully that works out for Tonga. Otherwise, Papua New Guinea is going to be there with them, with Australia and New Zealand as well, to help them out with the next Pacific Games. We'll go for a quick break, and after the break, we have a look at Ryan's preparations for this year's Olympics. Welcome back. You're watching Catch Play. Now, Papua New Guinea's superfish Ryan Pini is currently under preparations for his Rio Olympics. So let's have a look.
This is a big year for our very own Papua New Guinean athletes preparing for the events that are coming up this year. And the Rio Olympic Games is also one of those events. Ryan Pini is the first athlete in the country who has swam an Olympic B qualifier for the Rio Olympic Games this year in August, which he qualified for last year during the lead-up preparations for the 2015 Pacific Games in Australia. He has qualified for 3 events: 100-meter butterfly, backstroke and freestyle.
Yeah, I qualified for those times again for during the Pacific Games. So there's been a few meets that I've done these qualifying times, but the A qualifying, which is it's about half a second quicker in my 100 butterfly than what I've done in the last 12 months. So really looking at trying to get that time down. And there's a competition coming up, the Australian Championships in April. So that'll be a big focus, and I'll move myself down to Australia to get myself that added competition in the lead up to that championships.
After a great success in the 2015 Pacific Games, Ryan is still continuing on his campaign for the Olympic Games. Even though age might caught up with him, the 34-year-old swimming sensation is now vying for his last Olympic Games. Although 2012 was going to be his last Games, but the Pacific Games last year got him into preparation mode, which he's qualified again.
I know the program's set out already. At this stage, I've qualified for 3 events, so the 100 backstroke, 100 freestyle and 100 butterfly. The 100 butterfly is definitely my best and strongest event. And the other 2 will depend on how I'm feeling, but they're staged out pretty well where I have a day in between each for recovery. So
Ryan is a father and husband to wife Carly and 8-month-old son Nate. His family has given him that confidence and motivation to continue on his swimming career, and this will be his 4th time to participate at the Olympic Games. Injury is now no problem for Ryan, and he can concentrate and focus well on his preparations for these Olympic Games.
Yes, and that was Ryan Pini. They're currently under training for this year's Rio Olympics. Now, Ma, you caught up with him, so I'm sure our viewers are waiting to hear that.
Yeah, I caught up with Ryan Pini at his very own workstation, Theodist. Look, this guy, he's a non-stoppable man. He's got no limits. And, you know, after the 2015 Pacific Games, it gave him that mode to qualify again for the next, this year's 2016 Rio Olympic Games. And he's been telling me that he didn't have, now this Olympic Games, he's going injury-free.
Yeah, that's good.
And he's excited. He's done B qualifying, which is in 3 events, the 100-meter butterfly, backstroke, and freestyle. But he wants to make that B qualifying even better to qualify, to do an A qualifying, which will automatically make him to be in the semifinals.
Right.
So that's what he's looking forward to. And it's like, you know, he wants to do it even better. And this, he told me this is his last Olympic Games. And I hope so. But if he wants to continue on, well, that's up to the guy.
Well, we're all here to support him because, you know, he's the superfish. He's going to always represent Papua New Guinea, and there's no doubt about that. Now, also in preparations regarding his training, he's also been attending events in Australia, some competitions.
Yes, he recently just got back from Victoria Championships, and he came 2nd in that competition. He's going to work around some of his timings that he did qualified for, and he's trying to improve on those times that he has done. So he's got some more competition coming up this year, and also he's looking to promote swimming as well in this competition that he's attending, especially to the Oceania athletes and to the Pacific Island athletes. As we all know that going to the Olympics, there's a female and a male that's going to attend.
Yep.
And he's qualified by rights, meaning he swam a B qualifying.
Yep.
If a female athlete doesn't qualify by rights, she go in as a married athlete that is, you know, being the best swimmer in the Pacific. So he's going to be there to also give the confidence and promote swimming in the Pacific.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, you know, he takes at least 2 or 3 of our swimmers here in the country as well. Now, one of the qualifiers for the Rio Olympics is the Theodist Championships that's happening this year as well. And so, yeah, all the best to all our swimmers here in Papua New Guinea. And
also, you know, he's 34-year-old. He's got an 8-month-old son, wife who's the manager, and all that has changed. You know, speaking to him, he's told me that family has given him that confidence. Before he had family, he always had injuries. He was stressed, but now he has his family behind him. He's not worried about anything. No stress. He's confident, and you know, because of the support, he's going to go out there and do well for PNG in the Rio Olympic Games. And look, thumbs up for Ryan for qualifying, the first ever athlete to qualify for the Olympics for PNG.
Well, good on him. Anyway, that's brought us to the end of our show for tonight.
Yes, still exciting stories.
Anyway, viewers, that's the end of our program for tonight. If you have any queries or you've got some sports development programs happening in your area, please send us an email to sports@mtv.com.pg and / your emails to Catch Play. Now, you can always visit us here at Boroko Garden City Level 2. Maya and I are more than welcome to help you out. Until next time, thank you so much for watching this edition of Catch Play. I'm Godwin Eki.
And I'm Mike Koime.
Good night.
Good night.